In a quiet neighborhood in Frederick, Colorado, lived a family that, from the outside, seemed to embody the American dream: Chris Watts, his wife Shanann, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste. They were eagerly awaiting the arrival of their third child, a baby boy they had already named Nico. Shanann shared every aspect of their family life on social media. Her posts were constant: videos dancing with her daughters in the living room, photos of family dinners, heartfelt messages about Chris, whom she often called the best husband ever. To anyone watching, it looked like a close, happy, successful family. But behind that carefully curated image, there were cracks. Financial stress, a recent bankruptcy, and more importantly, a marriage quietly unraveling. While Shanann worked tirelessly to keep the family together, Chris grew distant. No one could have imagined that this emotional distance would lead to one of the most shocking crimes in recent American history. Chris and Shanann met in 2010 on Facebook. She was battling lupus and had gone through difficult relationships. At first, she didn't even want to reply to his message. But something about his patience and kindness drew her in. They married in 2012 in North Carolina and moved to Colorado shortly after, where they bought a large 5-bedroom house. They had their first daughter, Bella, in 2013, and their second, Celeste, in 2015. Shanann started working from home selling health products for a company called Thrive. Chris worked at Anadarko Petroleum as a field operator. But the lifestyle they projected online was unsustainable. In 2015, they filed for bankruptcy with over $400,000 in debt. Still, they kept up appearances. Shanann, a perfectionist and relentless optimist, kept posting cheerful updates. She was always trying to maintain the illusion of a perfect marriage. What she didn't post were the cold replies to her messages. The distant looks. The fact that Chris had started seeing someone else, a coworker. He had begun a secret relationship while pretending everything was fine at home. In the summer of 2018, Shanann spent 6 weeks in North Carolina visiting family with the girls. Chris stayed behind in Colorado. During that time, he grew closer to his mistress. He worked out more, changed his eating habits, and wrote her love notes. He even searched online for apartments they could move into together. Meanwhile, Shanann kept sending him messages, photos of the girls, loving words, trying to keep them connected. But Chris had already checked out. On August 13, 2018, at around 2 a.m., Shanann returned from a business trip. Her friend Nicole Atkinson dropped her off at home. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. The next morning, Nicole got concerned when Shanann didn't respond to texts. She missed a doctor's appointment and didn't show up to a business meeting. Nicole drove to the Watts' home, rang the doorbell, knocked, called, but no answer. She called the police. When officers arrived, Chris was there. Calm, emotionless. He let them into the house. Everything looked untouched. Shanann's purse, phone, and keys were there. Her car, with the children's car seats, was still in the garage. Her wedding ring had been left on the nightstand. Later that day, Chris went on the news and made a public plea. He begged for his family's safe return. But viewers noticed something was off. He showed no emotion. He didn't cry. He barely mentioned the unborn child. His behavior was cold, distant, unnerving. The police were already suspicious. They asked Chris to take a polygraph test. He agreed, and failed. Under pressure in the interrogation room, he broke down. First, he claimed Shanann had killed the girls and that he strangled her in a rage. It was a lie. Days later, the real truth emerged. That morning, after Shanann got home, the two argued. She asked him if he still loved her. He said no. He told her he wanted a divorce. She cried, accused him of destroying their family. He climbed on top of her and strangled her to death in their bed. Bella heard the noise. She walked in and saw her mother's lifeless body. Chris told her Shanann was sick. Then he wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet, loaded it into the back of his work truck, and placed Bella and Celeste, still alive, into the back seat. He drove 45 minutes to an oil site owned by his company. First, he smothered Celeste with a blanket. Then, Bella. Her final words were, "Daddy, no." He shoved their bodies into two separate oil tanks. The openings were just 8 inches wide. Shanann, still pregnant with Nico, was buried in a shallow grave nearby. The nation was horrified. Chris was arrested. On August 21, 2018, he was formally charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for each victim, plus charges for unlawful termination of a pregnancy and tampering with human remains. On November 6, Chris pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, a request supported by Shanann's family. They didn't want more death. They wanted the truth. On November 19, he was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 84 additional years. He was transferred to a maximum security prison in Wisconsin, where he remains in solitary confinement. The case exploded in the media. It became the subject of countless documentaries, podcasts, books, and YouTube videos. In 2020, Netflix released American Murder, The Family Next Door, using real footage from Shanann's videos, texts, and police interviews to piece together the tragic story. What shocked people most wasn't just the brutality, it was the betrayal. The lies. The total disconnect between what Chris portrayed and what he became. He didn't just kill his family. He tried to erase them, then played the grieving husband on camera. In letters from prison, Chris later admitted he had planned the murders. He said he gave Shanann oxycodone, hoping to cause a miscarriage. He wanted to be free. He didn't want to pay child support. He wanted to run off with his new girlfriend and pretend none of it had happened. Experts in criminal psychology labeled this a family annihilator case. These are rare, but often follow a pattern: a man under pressure, feeling trapped, choosing to eliminate his family rather than face the consequences of failure. But even in this category, Chris Watts stood out. Most family annihilators end their own lives. Chris didn't. He stayed. He lied. He tried to move on. The Rzuseks, Shanann's family, were devastated. On top of their grief, they were harassed online by conspiracy theorists who spread vile rumors. But the family refused to stay silent. They created initiatives to honor Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, and raised awareness about emotional abuse and domestic violence. This story is not just about murder. It's about the illusion of perfection. About control. About silence. About a woman who tried everything to save her family, and a man who destroyed it without remorse. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico are remembered not for the way they died, but for the way they lived. Their love. Their joy. Their voices singing in the back seat. Their laughter in home videos. Their dreams. We tell this story not to sensationalize, but to warn. Abuse doesn't always look like bruises. Sometimes, it looks like emotional distance. Like manipulation. Like silence. If you or someone you know is in a relationship that feels unsafe, there is help. There is hope. And remember, the truth, no matter how deeply it's buried, will always come to light. Thank you for watching.